guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Anna Maria, aka the Vegan Amazon, and today I'm bringing you into my kitchen so that we can make some bread. I don't know if I want to make bread rolls or if I want to just make a nice loaf of bread. However, I want to take you guys through the entire process so that you know how to make vegan bread out of scratch. So let's get into it. Okay, you guys, so in the past I have made bread and it never tasted good. It always tasted like there was something off. So I started researching, and it turns out that it had a lot to do with the quality of the flour and the yeast that I was using. So then I went ahead and I went to my local BJ's store and I bought the biggest batch of yeast that I could find, as well as some flour. So right now I'm using Fleischmann's instant dry yeast, and I love this because it lasts you forever, and it actually was a packet of 2, and that's just the first one, so it's gonna last me for a really long time. Now the recipe that I've been using as of late, I actually got from an Instagram post, but I'm modifying it a little bit for this specific recipe. It's usually 2 cups of warm water, and half a cup of white sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of yeast, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1/4 cup of oil, and 5 to 6 cups of flour. Now the bread flour that I was using was just like the basic store-bought flour, the one that the store brands. But I realized that that flour was like really cheap quality, and it was one of the reasons that my bread was acting so nasty, or better yet, it was tasting kind of off. So now I bought my bread flour. Now is this King Arthur's flour. It's really good, and I might actually have to stop this video and go buy more flour because I just realized I don't have enough. It's usually around 5 to 6 cups. So either way, we're gonna use this and then make some more, or I mean buy some more. So since it usually calls for 2 cups of warm water, I'm actually trying to make this like a milky, buttery bread. So I'm gonna change it up, and I'm gonna use, I have a stick of butter here. This is from Earth Balance, and this is a 4-ounce stick of butter. I'm gonna throw this into a little saucepan with the 2 cups of, instead of water, I'm gonna replace it with almond milk. And this is unsweetened original almond milk. Almond Breeze happens to be my favorite brand. You can use soy milk, or cashew milk is really good because it has that fatty texture that regular cow milk would have. So I think that would actually work really well. I can't talk today. Anywho, we're gonna go ahead and throw this stick of butter here, and then let it melt a little bit before we pour in the 2 cups of milk. You can always just do the 2 cups of water. I'm gonna go ahead and do this with the 2 cups of milk. And I do have to go ahead and check the temperature because it cannot go over 110 degrees, because if I pour in my yeast into hotter milk than that, or hotter liquid than that, it will kill the yeast off. So let me go ahead and melt this off, warm the milk, and then we will get back into it. As this butter melts, we're gonna go ahead and pour in 2 cups of milk. In this bowl, I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the milk and butter, and then 1.5 tablespoons of this yeast and some sugar, so that the yeast can eat up the sugar and activate, and then let it froth up for a little bit. So right now, I'm gonna go ahead and add 1/2 cup of white sugar. I have pure granulated sugar. I also have pure cane sugar, but the yeast likes to eat the granulated sugar a little bit more. So we're gonna go ahead and give this a big scoopful of 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and stir that in. So I'm stirring it so it could cool down a little bit faster and it can get to the temperature that I want it to. So it's anything from 100 to 110 degrees. Anything above 110 degrees will kill your yeast. So make sure that you don't do that. I'm gonna go ahead and add 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. It doesn't have to be completely leveled, but yeast does a pretty good job of leveling itself. So, all right, so that's 1, and then here's half. So I'll go ahead and stir this in. And let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes until you see that the yeast starts to bubble and get a little frothy. Yeast started frothing, as you can see. So now I'm gonna go ahead and sift the flour in. The flour, and now I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I have Himalayan pink salt, but you can use whatever salt you have, or add onto this some oil. And normally it says to use vegetable oil, but I'm fancy, so I'm using this really awesome olive oil. It's California olive oil. This is actually not such an expensive brand, but also not like the cheapest brand, so it gives it a nice flavor to the bread. So I kneaded the dough for a little over 15 minutes, and it was still kind of sticky, so I sifted, or my daughter helped me sift, 1/2 cup of bread flour onto it, kneaded it for a little bit longer, and now I'm sitting it in the bowl so that it can proof for about 1 to 2 hours.
2 hours later.
So the bread has been proofing for about 2 hours and change, maybe almost close to 3 hours. I'm gonna go ahead and lay it on the board and knead it a little bit more and let it proof for another 2 hours after that.
1 day later.
So I left the dough rising overnight, and then I cut it into 2 separate pieces, and I put one in a loaf, and now I'm cutting the second one into small balls. So I'm gonna make these into nice little bread rolls. I let it rise for a little too long, so it kind of deflated, so I didn't knead it as much as I needed to. I'm gonna put some toppings on this. I actually have the complete seasoning. It's everything but the bagel seasoning. I'm gonna pour that on, and I'm gonna score it, and then I'm gonna bake the bread. The cat is going crazy. I'm gonna bake the bread for about 40 minutes at 350. And that's pretty much it. I'll show you guys the end result. Okay, so I just scored this loaf, and I'm gonna pour everything but the bagel seasoning on it. And I'm gonna be very generous with this, because as it rises, the seeds that fell over to the sides, that will stick onto the sides of the bread, and it's gonna be delicious. All right, and then these I'm putting in my muffin tray. Since these are silicone trays, I don't really have to spray them with oil or flour them or anything. I'm just gonna put them as such, and they will rise a lot. This one I might have to redo because it's a little too big. And then that's pretty much it. Bake it for 40 minutes at 350 degrees, and you're ready to go. I was able to bake the breads early this morning. I let them rise for the second time, or I let them proof for the second time overnight, and I ended up baking them this morning, and as soon as they cooled down, we started eating them. So here's the end result. Like I said, we've been eating them. So we had 6 little bread rolls, and then we made a loaf. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cut into one of these so you can actually see how delicious they turned out. Okay, so this is my little muffin bread. It actually came out a bit thicker than I wanted it, but it's got a nice crust on the outside, and then on the inside it's got a nice doughy texture. But again, it might be a little too dense for most people, so maybe not proofing it overnight so that we can still have some air inside there. But the flavor is out of hand. It's so good. Oh yeah. So that's the muffin. And this is the loaf. This one actually got a good amount of air and a nice crust on the outside, which is great. And it's perfect for sandwiches. I have been wanting a tomato sandwich since yesterday, so that's what I'm gonna use this one for. You'll see, nice and airy, just like, look at those perfect air bubbles. Oh my God, it's so good. Can't wait to eat it with a tomato sandwich. I'm gonna continue to eat bread until I gain like 1,000 pounds. No. I'll behave. All right, you guys. That's it for today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click on that bell button so you're notified every single time that I post up a new video. And stay safe. Try the recipe and let me know in the comments if you liked it or not. I would suggest not letting it proof overnight for the second round. Just let it proof for like another 30 minutes to an hour max, and then cut it up and do whatever it is that you're gonna do with it, so you still have those nice air bubbles, because if not, it starts collapsing on itself. My mistake, but I kind of waited the entire day to make the darn bread, and then I made it really late at night. So it is what it is. But I hope you liked it. I love you guys. Please stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.